a segment on this set. We've seen LNG struggle against like these knife fight, really aggressive early game comps that TT brought out, and that's exactly what RA have. Lee Sin, LeBlanc, Kalista. This comp just wants to fight and go forward.
That is some serious early game power right there. And then the last two lock-ins for RA are basically just two different go buttons where it's like, okay, we want to fight, now we fight. On the other side, though, for
Fiora.
LNG, yeah, we've got a Fiora coming out, which is going to be very exciting up in that top side. We also have the Sylas going in the mid lane. Does feel like this is going to be a scrappy game, to say the very least here, Lyric. And just to remind everyone at home as well, for anyone that doesn't know, for anyone that's not been following the LPL, this is going to be an incredibly important matchup in terms of the standings as well. If you only watched last year, you haven't watched this split at all, you'd see Rare Atom, you'd see LNG, and you think, oh, you know, middle of the table teams, whatever. This is a 5-1 Rare Atom against a 7-0 LNG. LNG currently tied for the top of the table right here, and Rare Atom poised to try and upset that run as they're on a win streak of their own.
Yeah, RA definitely on a good streak. LNG, of course, undefeated. And the first thing my eyes gravitate towards is actually RA looking for a bit of a cheeky level 1 to punish Icon.
Icon takes a little damage, but he'll be able to dash away. He's fine on this one. Both mid laners starting with their dash, which is going to be fine for them both. But RA, off the back of the cheeky late invade, will look to start with a blue buff. Does mean Tarzan now has to make some decisions on how he wants to play this early game.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see it because in both soul lane matchups, Cube and FoFo are able to get pressure early on. The top lane matchup is one I'm really interested to see as well because it's a little bit different, right? We don't typically see the Fiora in the LPL, though it is one of Ale's more played champions in his career. It's a matchup where Nocturne typically do go with your Fear Tether second. Of course, that is pretty useless against the Fiora, who can't just parry that and stun you. But the matchup really doesn't come online for Fiora until level 6, but with that ultimate, you can definitely all in Nocturne and win out in the 1v1. So that's what we're looking for that lane, and just gonna get a bit of a trade side until then.
I want to dig a little deeper into that, if that's okay with you, because I feel like oh, hang on, we've got a 2v2 on the bot side. Lwandy and kicked out of the lane there. That's the nature of a Kalista lane, though. They hit level 2, they try and force it. But looking at that top lane matchup, because you're talking about how obviously you can parry riposte the fear, but then Nocturne theoretically can also spell shield that parry, so he gets his attack speed. So I feel like certainly in the early game, there are some really interesting ways that those trades can go.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I know there used to be a bug with it that sometimes actually it wouldn't go off. Sometimes the spell shield wouldn't work. That's a bug from a few years ago, so I'm actually not sure if that's still around in the game, but you're right. It's definitely like a very weird back and forth matchup. Nocturne should be able to get the push early on just from his Q and his passive. That didn't happen this time around because, you know, Leyan went for that bottom side invade, so if Q would have just tried to push level 1 and Fiora wasn't contesting, a combination of Cube would have either been inting or LNG wouldn't be taking advantage of trying to steal away the enemy jungle camp. So that is what we saw happen, and gonna have a bit of a kind of a standard early game. One big thing with this matchup, right, is I think it's very clear to see that LNG do outscale RA's composition. RA needs to be the ones looking for aggressive action early on. We want to see Leyan especially linking up with FoFo. Going for ganks on an Icon might be hard to bring him down because FoFo should be the one pushing in that lane, but even just roaming towards bot lane, looking for picks on sides, getting ahead, that's going to be quite a tough task for RA because RA actually have the least kills per minute out of any team in the LPL. This is one of the slower teams, one of the least bloody teams, especially in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it feels like this is a polar opposite to what we're used to expecting from RA. So perhaps a challenge for them. But also, when you look at that bottom lane, you've got the Kalista Nautilus, you have a mid laner that can roam and assassinate, you've got the Lee Sin jungle. Feels like playing through dragons could be the way forward for this squad. As you can see, Tarzan hovering up towards the top side. Cube knows what's going on, but his recall will be denied here. The wave is slowly but surely pushing in. Ale, we know how good he is on the Fiora. Recall cancelled once again. Cube has flash. Going to be looking for the fear here onto Ale. Does get it. Flashes under the tower. Tarzan gets him. Might fall to the minions. 1 or 2 more hits. Leyan arrives and answers it. 1 for 1 now as Leyan. Don't think he can chase any further for this one because Icon now waiting in the wings.
yeah, Leyan with a nice response. Cube gonna lose a little bit to the turret. You know, a couple CS did go down, but still not gonna be the end of the world for him in that one. It is nice that RA was able to answer on that trade. Now for Leyan, looks like he's gonna naturally path down towards his bottom lane once again. LNG have started getting some decent vision there with the control ward, so if Leyan and FoFo did try to link up and look for any plays towards spot, LNG at least will have a good idea that it's going down. But going back to your point about dragon stacking, right? That's definitely that RA can try to do with the fact that they should have prio in both mid and bot. I feel like the big problem will be if LNG tries to contest at level 6, right? Because you do just have so much AoE damage on the bottom side of the map for LNG. Sure, you might not get on the objective first, but if RA are the one just grouping in front of dragon, sets up for an early, a very easy equalizer, very easy showstopper, and then Icon able to jump in, Light able to just deal all the damage on the backline safely. So RA definitely has to be a bit cautious when it comes to looking for those early dragon plays.
Yeah, and I want to quick... Oh, hang on. I'll hold that thought, because Tarzan is toying with the idea of making a play through this bottom lane here. I'm not sure if those minions spotted him there, or if he managed to sneak by. It's a close one. There was a lot of pings on the minimap, but sometimes it's hard to tell who they're from when there are so many pings going on. Leyan definitely knows what's up now, but he's going to be scared away from this Scuttlecrab. Tarzan should be able to finish that one off for himself. RA grouping up and kind of toying with the idea of making a play, but it's not happening for now. Here comes the grand challenge in the top lane, and Cube has just been absolutely destroyed by LA.
And I don't think that it's going to get any easier as time goes on, right? Once you do get that grand challenge coming out from Fiora, proccing the vitals, getting the true damage coming out, Nocturne not having any way to outduel you in that one, and I bet this is a matchup Cube probably isn't too familiar with, but when you're a player like Ala, you're the one who brought up the counter pick, you've played this champion historically throughout your career, you probably know, all the ins and outs of what you need to be looking for. And even in terms of items, right, comes back to lane, already has the item spike whip, only going to get further from there, and we're going to see, looks like he was leaning down towards river, Cube trying to walk up to contest the wave, and just gives a good angle for Ale to go in, and he got the parry from the fear tether, and sadly for Cube, that is the end of the road.
It's too clean, and you can proc your vitals with the Iron Spike Whip as well, so you can just blast all 4 of them in under a second. Here we go, Lwandy looking for the engage. As Tarzan once again I feel like Tarzan does this play a lot, right? Just trying to sneak into the bushes of the bot lane. I feel like every time we see Tarzan, we often see him trying to sneak in, but really, really good ward there from Hung. He's going to deny that play from happening as Ale has found Leyan, who was just trying to get a recall off, and Ale is essentially 2v1 here, just drops his control ward. He's more than happy as I guess a kill happened. We'll hopefully get a replay of that one.
My guess is that Light was probably recalling in the brush, right? Because, I mean, at least Lwandy went back, so I don't know if just Lwandy went for the reset and Light was just walking up to catch the wave, walk too far forward, and you can assume a hook came out from Hung, and that's where it ended. So, but yeah, going back to your point on Tarzan, is actually we are going to get a replay. Okay, so he's just recalling and does end up just getting caught out from Hung. A bit sad, but it does happen. But going back to your point about Tarzan leaning bot, right? I think the first time it was very smart. When you don't have prio in your lanes to walk into river to fight for Scuttle or to fight for heralds or dragons, what you should always do first is lean towards one of your lanes, commit, numbers advantage, force prio, and then be able to walk into said area. So that's something LNG are very good at doing, as we are going to see LNG at least setting themselves up for Rift Herald. All members are making their way towards, so maybe we get a potential fight out. Seems like LNG don't want to full-on commit just yet with the possibility of RA being here.
Ale just charges straight in. This is a team fight Fiora, apparently. And, the new Fiora build, not very representative of what you'd expect from Fiora in the past, right? Where you do go a lot tankier. Quite often the Gore Drinker is the go-to item for these Fioras. But I wonder here on the Sett support, who is going to be pulled in as Haymaker and an Equalizer just to try and deter the fight for now. And I think RA will slowly but surely win control of the Herald. To go back to what you were saying earlier, Lyric, it's very much down to RA in the early game, and they're aware of that. They're managing to bully LNG away from the Herald.
Yeah, really nice from them. I think one pivotal point is FoFo, I think definitely brings more than Icon does right now in early skirmishes, already sitting on that Oblivion Orb just compared to, you know, a Dark Seal and a Ruby Crystal towards Icon, to where that's why it feels like Ale being there first was such a massive deal, because he is the person who is so far ahead on the side of LNG. But the second that the Equalizer wasn't really able to get on top of any priority targets, it feels like LNG realized, hey, we can't really be looking for these early skirmishes. We're fine to just sit and wait. It doesn't really matter too much if this Herald goes over. They played it safe, and now they're even answering on the opposite side of the map by stealing away these Raptors.
FoFo is not going to let it happen, though. Moves in, contests just enough to make sure that the big Raptor resets, as Leyan is on the bottom side on his Krugs right now, and Lwandy returning to the team. 2-2 on the scoreboard, fairly even, but R8 with a minor gold lead. It's where the Herald goes down, though. That's where the gold will really start to come through for the side of RA. But I want to just quickly bring light to the fact that we have a Sett support in this game. This is a pick that has not been popular, not even just in the LPL, just globally. Sett has been very popular as a mid laner. We've seen him a bit top as well. But support, it feels like we've not really seen this significantly for a long old while now.
It's really weird, right? Because we actually had him a little bit in week 1, and that's when we had that bug with Hex Flash, which is then, you know, Hex Flash got disabled after that. And ever since that point, people just haven't gone back to bringing the pick back out. But I don't think it's necessarily lost any potency that it did have, you know, 2 weeks ago on, you know, patch 11.1, 3 weeks ago. So I still think it's fine to come out. You know, we did have a bit of a look at Trap, but we didn't get to see in-depth, step-by-step of how we did end up here. So for LNG, you still end up getting a nice combo of the Sett and Rumble. I think that is, like, one good aspect of this. And you also do get 2 pretty decent soul lane matchups. Sure, Icon's losing out in lane prio early on, but we know he's going to be much stronger in the skirmishes and side lanes later on.
So we'll have to see how things are going to go down for LNG later on in the game. As you're saying, Icon in the side lane. I mean, Icon in the side lane feels like just a sentence that just naturally rolls off the tongue after this guy's champion pool, right? When you think of things like the Sylas, you think of things like the Echo when you're talking about Icon. Feels like side lane champions are very much Icon's comfort zone. Feels like this game is going to be very representative of that. You've got a Fiora as well to go for like a 1-3-1. RA, we said, need to be putting the best foot forward. They've got themselves a Herald. They got themselves the first Drake. Leyan is beyond the halfway mark of time with this Herald, so you expect him to start to try and use that, and it looks like immediately he's just going to slam that mid, look for a couple of plates here for FoFo.
Yeah, gonna get some gold for his LeBlanc. FoFo already halfway through being able to complete his mythic item, so hopefully start getting him roaming around the map. We've seen so far LNG have actually been the ones who've done quite a good job of Tarzan and Lwandy consistently holding hands. You look at the bottom side of the map right now, and it's just completely littered with LNG's wards, so no shenanigans going on right now. The speed of the game is completely fine for LNG. Sure, they're a little bit behind in terms of gold, but you already have your Gourd Drinker on Ale, so he's extremely strong up in that top side of the map. Really nothing Q can be able to do. He's going to walk up, just use his passive Q, and then he has to walk away. Can't look for any sort of trades with Ale, despite already having that Bramble Vest. As we see right there, doesn't matter. You still get completely chunked out. Those Vitals incredibly strong.
Yeah. The true damage that you get from them as well. Plus the fact that he's already got a Gourd Drinker, so there's only so much healing reduction is going to do for you in Season 11. It's necessary, but quite often it just feels like it's not enough. But also that Grasp of the Undying, meaning that those Qs do that extra chunk of damage, just make it very difficult to lane against Ale. And you know, we've all heard the rumors about Chinese Fiora, right? We've all seen the clips on YouTube. We've all seen those moments. We all saw Bin in the finals of Worlds 2020 grabbing his pentakill. We all know what Chinese Fioras are able to do, and Ale is one of the best of them. I do want to kind of revisit this conversation, though, of quote-unquote 1-3-1, right? Because 1-3-1 feels like it's out of fashion. It feels like playing side lanes, or not playing side lanes, but split pushing specifically, has gone out of fashion in League of Legends. It doesn't feel like a strategy that we get to see all too often.
I feel like there's a few things with it, right? There's not too much value in it is one thing. Like, you really don't have an incentive going for a tier 2 or an inhibitor turret over fighting for Soul. And Soul's obviously been the big one, right? Especially if you're a team who picks a sort of composition like this and you can get the first and second Drake, now the game is elongated long enough to where maybe your split pusher, someone like Fiora is a great example, can start finding solo kills in the side lane, someone who has dive pressure on their lane opponent, because that's a big question about when you have a side laners. Can this champion actually be able to hit turrets against the enemy champion, which means can they either chunk them low enough to where they can just hit turret for free, or can they dive, you know, the opposing champion? I definitely feel like Fiora falls into that category. Now the question is, can LNG get to that point where that's relevant? And two, do they even go with it? Because he already hit on Gore Drinker coming out. I think it does make her a little bit better of a skirmisher than she was in previous splits. And the rest of LNG's comp definitely wants to be grouping up, looking for these skirmishes.
Whether or not they can find the skirmishes will be another question. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on FoFo across the course of this game as well, because FoFo has been one of the mid laners that I think is permanently in the conversation for general top mid laners in the LPL. Never at the top of that conversation, right? He's never anyone's favorite mid laner in the LPL. But I feel like this is a split where he can really make a name for himself, right? We've seen RA doing a good job for themselves last split, having that 9-win streak halfway through the split and really pushing themselves up the table. Now for the second split in a row, they're having a really good performance, and it feels like this is the split where it's no longer just, oh no, RA, they were a flash in the pan. This is the split to prove that that was the real thing. And I think for FoFo especially, it's going to be important for him to perform. He feels like the star player on this roster for me.
Yeah, the big thing is, I think in terms of laning, he's one of the best, but we need to see him show up in skirmishes and looking for picks. Like right now, RA looking for the engage.
Yeah, Leyan is just going to get taken out right at the start, but it's answered with an AD carry. A Frost comes on through, and FoFo to get one. Icon has a Nor ult to work with. Cube going to be chased away. FoFo is recalling as Cube is forced to flash on out. And RA losing these early skirmishes is not good when we talk about the compositions.
No, LNG finding the angle. And this is also what we talked about, but we talked about in terms of dragons, right? Of how easy it is for LNG to look for these group skirmishes with the amount of AoE tools you do have coming out, to where RA's composition feels much more of a pick comp early on. You want to overwhelm the enemy with numbers, catch him off guard with denying enemy vision, you know, utilizing LeBlanc in Nocturne, maybe a Nautilus hook. And they weren't able to do that. Both teams grouping in front of Herald really sets LNG up for success. They were able to bring it to its fullest. Interestingly as well, we have a first item Serpent's Fang coming out on Light.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, maybe just
strange.
Maybe just wanting to go for the earlier power spike. You do have, you know, shields on numerous champions on the opposing side. Nautilus, Lee Sin. You have the Immortal Shield Bow already coming out for Kalista. So there's some value there. It is extremely cheap. That's almost always one of the reasons when you see items like this come out first. It's like, okay, it was the best power spike that can come at a moment where our team knew we wanted to fight. Which right after he bought it, they did go for the Rift Herald. So my guess is that's the thought process going on behind the Serpent's Fang coming out first.
So it's like a timing purchase, as RA will find themselves a tower in this bottom side of the map, but it was traded for the tier 1 went down in the top side, but also a huge chunk onto that tier 2. Remember, it's a Fiora, and sure, the tier 2s aren't the most valuable they've ever been, but it's still a big objective. It's still something important to take away, and certainly for Ally on this Fiora, if you can have space in those side lanes, if you can have that long lane to try and bully, you know he'll find an opportunity to 1v1 Cube.
That's the big thing, right? Having the longer lane opens up chances to find those solo kills, gives you a bigger window to go and roam if he's answering his wave by his inhibitor turret. So a lot of benefits can be coming out from that one, but still, RA doing a nice job of keeping pressure on the opposite side of the map. They just stacked in mid first. They're able to take this mid turret from the fact that they used the first Rift Herald on that one. So right now, RA having the small advantage. Now it goes back to what we talked about of utilizing their pick tools, right? I especially want to see Leyan linking up with FoFo, trying to find a pick onto Icon. If Cube gets a second where he can roam, bring him down as well, utilize that paranoia, start opening up the numbers advantage to turn that into vision to where you can keep looking for your picks, you know, maybe use a Kalista ultimate to throw someone into LNG, but right now LNG are the ones using their window to answer, just getting a bit of chunk damage onto mid turret.
And I have to say, Lyric, this has been a very slow game from RA, which is not surprising, but it is concerning, right? When we talk about the fact that we've got this Kalista, we've got this LeBlanc, we've got Lee Sin, Nocturne. Like, these are all champions that want to fight early on. And the mid game, I mean, we're already into the mid game. We've got into a meta now where you and I were talking about this the other day, that The mid game is not the 25-minute mark that it used to be a couple of years ago, right? The mid game is now at this point. So it does feel like RA are already starting to run out of time a little bit with this composition, and they're going to have to put their foot down on the accelerator pedal and put some pressure on LNG somewhere.
Yeah, the good thing is that they do at least have 2 dragons, right? So next Drake coming up in 2:30. If they get that one and be on soul point, you're at least forcing LNG to fight you right now, where you do still have numerous strong members, like FoFo being on 2 items. So about a little more than half an item up over Icon. And you do have a lot of good targets to deal damage on, right? You can chunk out people like Tarzan, people like Light very easily. But like you're saying, this isn't unexpected only for RA, but for LNG, this is the stock and standard too. I think in terms of champion kills per minute, RA's last, LNG's 14th. But then for LNG, they have the longest average game time in the LPL. So these 2 teams are very much, they look for incremental gains with very, very low risk. They're not big risk teams. These aren't the 2 teams you expect to be like, hey, it's 20 minutes. Baron's up. Let's go for the bait. Let's look for the fight. We know we can outplay the enemy team. No, they're going to like look for the steps, ping pong waves back and forth, look for the incremental advantages of, hey, well, I have this pressure here. I could roam this player over to mid lane. We can look for a pick or a fight around this point. We can take vision now. So, you know, I kind of see this one going to 3 games, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is, you know, like a 30 to 35 minutes per game series.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either, because when I looked at these 2 teams on the standings, it's exactly what I said as we came in, right? LNG versus RA, if you think in the mindset of spring, if you think in the mindset of a year ago, it's like, I don't care about this series. But right now in the standings, right now with the players on these 2 rosters and the way these 2 teams have been playing, this is a truly exciting series within the LPL, and could well be a series that we end up seeing late on in playoffs at this point. So it's really important, not just in terms of the standings here, it's important in terms of showing us what these 2 teams are made of when we're getting towards best of 5s, when we're getting towards playoffs. These are the kind of teams that you're going to be up against. So especially across the course of best of 3, one of the big things I'm looking out for is how much the strategies diversify between the 2 teams across the series, right? If, let's say, for example, RA's early game strategy doesn't work in this one, okay, we need to see things change up for game 2.
Yeah, so far we've seen them at least realizing their win conditions, right? About a minute ago, we saw FoFo and Cube hovering towards Ollie's lane. But guess what? LNG knows what RA's win conditions are as well. Ollie was playing safe. They weren't able to find the pick. They were able to get deep vision down, and they at least have both mid and bot wave pushing in for this Drake. So it will be pretty hard for LNG to just try and tunnel in. It's FoFo doing a nice job. I feel like this is how RA want to play this one out. Keep sending FoFo in with a bit of poke, layering this damage. You don't just get a full-on 5v5, but LNG's looking for it right now.
LNG want to contest. This is a Kalista, so the Drake is taken. That's 3, and now a fight on top of it. Look at the damage layered across the squad of LNG, but they group up, they stay strong. Healing across the team from Ale, and now he can follow up. This looks like LNG might just win it out in the end. Icon low on HP, but he's Sylas, so he might be able to get back in. iBoy chased down and cut to pieces as in goes FoFo on the backline, finds one for himself, blinks back out, blinks back the other direction. He's breaking ankles, but it's his own legs that end up broken.
I love that Lwandy looks for the flash haymaker and then to try to finish it off himself. Didn't hit it, didn't matter. There were still too many members of LNG there, so they're able to pick it up. And I think LNG have just been playing very smart around how RA's comp needs to operate, right? They haven't been giving them any angles to get off that chip damage before they come in. And then once they get into that full 5v5, RA found a good angle. They were the ones who went in. They thought that they had the fight, but in terms of just formation, LNG are too strong when they're grouped up. We're gonna see right here, it's Hung who starts to engage. Nocturne quickly follows in onto the Varus. He forces a flash out. You have a ton of bursts coming out from LeBlanc as well, but really nice equalizer layered onto numerous members. The flame spitters there. I feel like you have Sylas doing so much in these fights as well with that Nautilus ultimate. And then in the end, RA's comp just gets chunked too low, and LNG are just able to bring the fight home.
And you could see the near fight win rate for RA. The first half of the fight feels like RA are going to do it. They get everyone down to 3/4 HP, but then they don't quite finish any of it, right? They don't quite knock those kills over, and close is not good enough against this kind of composition because you've got a Fiora that's just going to heal indefinitely in the fight. You've got a Sylas that's going to do the same. Sett is more than happy to be on low HP, so felt like this RA comp just didn't quite have enough in the tank to win the fight, and now we're even in gold once more. But importantly, RA did get themselves that Drake. It will be an Infernal Soul. That is very much a win condition available for RA.
Yeah, and I feel like going back to that fight and looking forward to other fights, right? The big thing about RA's comp, you just look across the board, there's just so much single target damage there as compared to pretty much across the board AoE for LNG. So that's why you're going to see if RA can get onto the same target, if they can get on Light, Light's going to get bursted out immediately. But in those group fights, you just have so much Flame Spitter, Abscond Abduct with the passive from Sylas, the Q being able to hit everyone to where for RA, it's like, sure, Distortion from FoFo can hit numerous people, but that's about it.
It's going to be tough for RA. And, you know, this entire game so far, I feel like I sound almost LNG biased, right? Where we've been talking about this early game composition for RA, and I feel like I'm just kind of belittling the fact that I don't think that they're going to be able to pull it off. But genuinely, the longer this goes on, the worse it feels for RA in my mind. And this is not a team that plays fast and aggressive. And I like that they're trying something new. I like that we're seeing this composition out from them. But at the same time, I don't know if it's going to work out. Interesting to see this build from iBoy as well, where he's gone for a Wit's End as the second item with Kalista here. I don't know if this is a new Kalista build, if this is standard these days, and I've just missed out on seeing that, but definitely an interesting take, and will give him a lot of survivability against that Rumble and that Sylas.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, I mean, obviously we're still on 11.12, so it's not the build that we've been seeing here in the LPL, but always possible in solo queue, you're right, especially when the enemy, the big carry threats that you have to worry about are the Sylas and Rumble coming in. Gonna do good at least trying to kite that out. You have the Immortal Shield Bow and the Lifesteal as well, so assuming the immediate burst can't kill you, you know that you're going to get value out of those resistances from the fact that you have Lifesteal to heal that back up and get to full HP, so RA definitely still in it, and especially the fact, right, we're talking a lot about how team fights have continuously gone LNG favored, but still, RA are the ones who only need one more dragon to be on to have Soul. It will be an Infernal Soul, so a ton of bursts coming out, especially from someone like FoFo. If RA can play it correctly, keep their vision lines forward, and then we see performances like what Zika showed us on LeBlanc, or what Shank showed us on LeBlanc the other day, of just picking off stragglers in the enemy jungle, going out of your way to be the one who has agency to find the picks. It feels like RA definitely can win the game through that if they can secure this dragon, which is up in 40 seconds. So guess what? We're about to get some action, folks.
Yeah, I think we might be Lyric. It's 5-7 on the scoreboard. Gold just about dead even. But the Infernal Drake coming up in 30 seconds, and it would be Soul for RA, who have complete control of the area. LNG going to try and fight for that control by getting mid-priority, using that to muscle their way into the River. But Cube is going to look to just clear the wave himself. RA having to back away. Then Nocturne in the mid lane still, but does have his ultimate available. Equalizer onto iBoy. The squad just dives onto the AD carry and takes him straight out of the fight. And LNG already starting off strong, but now the health bar's burning down themselves. RA are split into two portions. They can't work together in this fight. They spread out, and it means LNG can stay together as a unit and win the fight. Cube now getting chased down. FoFo on the LeBlanc. Can't go back to his clone here. Has to flash away. Icon trying to chase him. Cube's going to be the target here. Spell Shield comes out, but it's a little too late. It means Cube is going to fall down. Another kill going the way of Alley here, and surely a Drake.
Yeah, LNG going to be able to secure this one, and you highlighted it, right? That fight kind of devolved into two different skirmishes, as we're going to see RA look like try to posture for a steal, but Ollie doing everything to prevent it, and Hung is just dead. Oh, is he going to get away? He actually gets away.
I can't believe he did that anchor toss and still gets away with it. He moved like 1 inch on the anchor toss there. But hey, he gets away with it. Ally robbed of a kill a little bit on that one. Let's take another look, because it feels like RA just split up completely.
Yeah, and they were trying to, seems like, just answer mid-wave and posture for a fight. They open up their Kalista just getting immediately bursted out, but they still do find a decent angle to go in, right? You see the pick potential coming out from Cube and FoFo right onto the Rumble, that single target damage that we were talking about, but then you're separated, your Nautilus going one way, Nocturne and LeBlanc the other, and that's how LNG were able to come out ahead and be able to pick up that Infernal Drake in the end. And RA are trying to bait this. Looks like they want to try and find some picks.
Okay, alright, know that they're on a timer, I guess. They're like, right, guys, it's time to start things off. It's time to make some action happen, because this doesn't get better later on into the game. Cube is in the bot side, just clearing things away, but just before this fight kicks off, take a glance over the scoreboard for a second here. Look at Allay's inventory. The guy has 3 items, plus boots, plus a chain vest. I think FoFo's the only one that has any threat to him whatsoever. But even then, there's a Sterix shield there and a Gold Drinker. So I'm not sure even FoFo can kill this guy. He is going to be a team fight monster.
Yeah, there's actually no one on the side of RA who would start on him. I think if like Cube and FoFo go in unison, and maybe even Leyan can find like a Sonic Wave onto him, maybe you can do it. But even FoFo going in, right? Sure, maybe you chunk him to half HP with the amount of like heal and lifesteal he has, but he'll just instantly be able to turn to a wave, turn to a camp, heal that right back up. So he's going to become quite an annoyance for the side of RA to deal with. You can see him now just defaulting back to that bottom wave. I like this. You have TP up, just put a lot of pressure, try and pull RA apart. We've seen that RA have tried to go for that pick on side lanes a few times, but hasn't really quite worked out for them, especially right now where even Icon has TP, so if any shenanigans did break out towards the bot side, he can follow up. But actually right now, if you look at your minimap, it looks like LNG are the ones who want to look for shenanigans with Icon hovering over.
Does feel that way. Icon playing with Fog of War here. Blue Trinket goes down. Icon still didn't get spotted by that one, so I think RA are suspicious, but they didn't know for sure they was hanging around there. And RA, they would love to play up towards the top side right now. Drake not coming up. They'd love to play up towards that Baron, but there's so much threat in the side lane from Ale because, again, who can fight him? If he's just left alone on the bottom side of the map, he can take over the game, which is why you see Icon hovering around there just in case an answer comes from RA.
Yeah, and I like that we've seen both teams be able to like think about how the enemy composition wants to play, right, and use process of elimination, because that's why RA knew that Icon was on bot side. It's like, hey, he's not showing on top wave. We have vision in our bottom side jungle. He's not mid. You know, he's Sylas with a Fiora. They're definitely going to be looking for that double soul lane pick on the side lanes. They didn't give over an angle, and it also shows one of the reasons why both of these teams are top teams in the LPL right now, right? They not only understand their win conditions, but they're able to think about, hey, how does my comp work in tandem with the enemy? What does the enemy want to be looking for right now? But it's kind of interesting, right? When we talked about the similarities in both of these teams and how they both are, the way I always try to say is like standard or by the book, which just means they're not very prone to looking for risky plays. They're going to look for the 90% plays every time. And this time around, LNG were just able to profit off the fact that they stuck with that identity. They drafted a comp around looking for those kinds of plays, to where RA seems like wanting to go towards something different, wanting to try to take some key learnings away from LNG's loss to TT. But sadly for Leyan, he wasn't able to do what Xiaopeng did, which Xiaopeng pretty much just didn't farm that game at all. He like did maybe 3 or 4 camps early, and then it was like, okay, gank top, walk to mid, gank mid, maybe go do 1 camp, gank top again, gank back mid again. And yeah, LNG just, they couldn't even really answer. There was no way to even predict that TT would go for those types of plays, and RA weren't able to find those angles, but also LNG didn't give over those angles because we did see them looking for those sorts of plays, but LNG were not overextending really at almost any point in time early on.
And it does feel like that's a learning from LNG as well, right? From the losses that they've had so far this split, being these early game skirmishes. It feels like they are figuring out how to play it slow, but Ale stepping way too far forward on that one. The riposte waited out, Hung immediately re-engages. Now Icon wants to try and answer for his top laner's quarrel here, but he's going to go down as well. Both solo laners from LNG just individually sprinting, to be quite honest. And Lwandy now goes in by himself. He'll be feared, but he can move back to the rest of his team. RA might look for more, though. There's the Sonic Wave in. Leyan not going to follow it up for now, but guess what? Drake is up. That is surely going to be a soul here for RA. What a blunder from LNG.
Yeah, whatever that is, what Ale was looking for, it wasn't it. It wasn't what needed to be done. And it goes back to the days of like season 4 and 5 and seeing those like Fiora TP flanks where she just goes in solo, instantly gets bursted out. It's like, hey, it actually doesn't matter if you're this far ahead in items, if you're just single-handedly running into the enemy team and they can just put all their focus and CC onto you. RA now, I think, feel great about baiting this one out. They could go for a turn. Oh, they actually want to back off. I'm a bit surprised. Oh, TP coming out from Ale makes sense. They probably are sitting on a little bit of gold, right? They've been on the map for a little bit, so maybe do have some items they can purchase, but especially now with the explosions and the damage coming out from the Infernal Soul, this is where you feel confident as RA, and you need to start looking for, going into the topside jungle, looking for those picks. If LNG played smart and safe and don't come out of their base, that's when you do need to default to baiting a Baron to get those picks and get that fight.
I'm watching for when FoFo heads back to base as well. He's just been taking Gromp and stuff. I think he'll finish a death cap as a 4th item, which will be, I think, pretty much the strongest he'll get. And yeah, I mean,
what
do you say about that?
you can see what they were trying to do. Like, you had Icon TPing in. Lwandy was making his way to try to find a flank, but he went in so early, none of those members were even close to being in position to follow that up. And yeah, you kind of aptly said it. Was a little bit of a sprint, just a little bit.
But the game isn't over just yet. There's plenty of time for Ale to work it out. And you know what? After the game he's had so far, everyone's allowed one mess up, right? We'll give that one a pass. Ale's still having a good game for himself. He's still 4-1-6. That is a huge shutdown that he gave away, though. He's on 5 items now, including his boots.
Oh, God. Munchables, I just noticed. We have a Zanya's on light as well. We have a Zanya's on light as well. But I'll be honest, I'm not 5-head enough to know what this new Varus build is, but whatever light's going for.
AP Varus does a lot of massive percent burst damage, right? You can one-shot Fed Cho'Gaths with a full AP Varus, and the Mana Moon actually works with that, right? Because it applies mana damage to abilities. So I've not seen a hybrid version of this. This is a weird take from Light, but I can kind of see the logic. It's just you're missing the death cap, which is kind of an important part of the AP Varus build. We're just going to see Baron started here, Lyric, because LNG are moving over, but they might just be too late to the party, because this is a Kalista. It's just going to get burst on through. Now the paranoia comes in. FoFo threatening to the side. Baron already taken. LNG surely have to find a fight here. Lwandy is looking for it. But in the meantime, FoFo threatening on the backline. The damage on Tarzan is insane. Ale chasing him down, but FoFo escapes, turns invisible. The rest of the fight now ensuing. Leyan is behind everyone, but he's late to the party. There's a kick into the play, and FoFo finishing him off. Knocks him up and lines him down. As iBoy following up here, looking for more. FoFo, another dash in, another chunk of damage. iBoy flashes out as he gets a kill, and now Cube coming back in. RA playing with fire. They scrape a fight out by the skin of their teeth.
The way that RA played on the edge of their ranges was just so clean. Leyan coming in with that flank, FoFo being able to finish off with the damage. It was just such a pleasure to watch. And RA, it looked like they found a pretty decent fight, right? You see Ale be able to get on top of who I think it was FoFo at the time, but you know, good job by RA to try and bait that out. You saw, especially, I think Hung is the one who stopped Ale from being able to go forward. And then you pointed out the massively Sin flank did so much, but that damage from FoFo is absolutely disgusting.
It's just terrifying. I was really worried for RA here because Leyan was so late to this fight. He gets in, beautiful kick onto iBoy. Onto Light, and it just, that moment switches the fight completely around. FoFo again, just waiting for cooldowns at Wolves, goes back in and just annihilates 2 people again.
Yeah, right, that's the big thing, is we saw one, iBoy wasn't really being touched at that point in time, and then FoFo just being able to weave in and out with his cooldowns, again, kind of playing on the edge of his range was really nice to see, and even just people like Hung utilizing his Zanyas quite well. I think that showed one of the reasons why we do see supports go towards things like the Zanyas, because it buys so much time in the fight for your team to be able to do work, you to come back up, have your cooldowns to get another hook off, keep someone down for one of your big carries to pick up another kill. So now we're going to see how RA can not only utilize Infernal Soul, but this Baron.
That's Riposte Ale getting threatened by Cube, but he's going to have to back off himself. He's going to be pulled in. Cube, I think, just goes down on this one. The Grand Challenge healing coming out across LNG. But still going against an Infernal Soul. Great riposte. FoFo, his burst is denied by Ale. Ale playing that one beautifully.
Yeah, and oh god, FoFo's still going. And this is pretty much RA's win condition from here on forward. Sure, they have Soul, and especially right now while they have Baron, it's easy to see how RA can push their advantage forward. But if LNG can hang on until this is gone, we saw in that last fight that it was extremely close, and if you can still get that same close-knit team fight, it is winnable by LNG. The question is, how much work can FoFo do in weaving in and out, chunking them out before these fights happen, to where RA can be able to have a clean win off of that one. And I mean, FoFo right now is doing such massive work with this death cap that it definitely looks good for the side of Rear Adam.
Yeah, we highlighted the death cap coming in. We also highlighted that this is the split where FoFo is looking to prove himself. It feels like he is on peak form right now, and this LeBlanc game is certainly showing it. We're getting to see the kind of poke version of LeBlanc as well, right? Where you're popping in, you're doing damage before the fight, but the showstopper to stop that being the reality as FoFo trying to get in, but he's pulled back into the fray, turns golden, keeps himself alive for a second, jumps back onto the distortion, but he's taken down. Kill for light here and a huge shutdown as well. RA, just as the Elder Dragon spawns, they go too far. They try and buy too much time for themselves. Now Leyan sticking around the pit. Maybe can go for a steal. He is playing the Lee Sin. There's always a way. Now look, iBoy moving up the mid lane. They're going to try and trade something for the Elder Dragon. This is where it gets tense for both of these teams as Leyan, I think, has been found. I'm not entirely sure where he's managed to get to on the minimap. Trying to push in the mid lane. Leyan went down. I'm pretty sure it was Icon getting him. Elder Dragon taken as Hung just...
I don't know what that was.
He took it.
Yeah.
Hung, man.
Just... They take it, and he's like, well, what do I do now? Just decides to throw out the dredge line and give his life. But, you know, big shout out to Lwandy. I'm sure we're going to get a replay of that last fight, but the flash face breaker on FoFo to keep him there, make sure all the damage from LNG lands to where the Zanius has to come out and he just gets bursted out anyway. Really clutch coming out from Lwandy as Tarzan just trying to make sure FoFo can't find any picks right now. LNG gonna be able to back off, buy some items, and now with Elders, when you assume they want to be fighting, they want to be pushing down through mid lane, have your Fiora off in a side lane, then maybe group up as 5 or try and bring him in on an angle. But we definitely want to see LNG push this one forward as we get the replay. FoFo is the one that goes in immediately into the showstopper, but right here you comboed it with the equalizer. Iwandy's gonna flash in, gets the face breaker, and then that's just it. FoFo's chunked too low. Zanius comes out, but he's still gonna go down. In the end, we see Light as well on the backline doing so much damage. Gets Leyan pretty low to where he's not able to follow up or keep up with the fight anymore.
And now, let's just quickly revisit compositions for a second, Lyric, because we've been talking about how it was all about the early game for RA. The early game is a distant dream in the past at this point. We're 41 minutes in, as Icon finds himself an ability to hard engage with, but FoFo is doing everything he can to keep his team in the game. Still a minute on the Elder Dragon for LNG to work with. They have the late game team fighting in their comp, and they have an Elder Dragon. If that isn't enough to win a team fight, I don't think anything ever will be.
No, definitely not, but still, for the side of LNG, not having a great wave pushing into the base. Light already getting chunked so far from FoFo.
They surely have to just back away from this one, concede the inhibitor, but 30 seconds still on this Elder. I don't think LNG are going to try and force the base for now, but they can move up to the Baron and see if they can just burst this one before the Elder runs out. But with only 20 seconds remaining, maybe there's a window of opportunity to punish here from RA if they can get their contest in 10 seconds time. And LNG, I think, realize it. They won't actually start the Baron. They look for a pick onto Leyan instead. Will be able to dash out to safety, gets out to his teammates. 5 seconds on the Elder. It's about to fall off the team of LNG. Now RA have a window again.
Yeah, but still, LNG realized, hey, you know, despite the fact that we have push in mid, that we have pressure in river, we actually can't look for anything. Like you're saying, RA being the team that has the pressure, I think especially being afraid of FoFo, if you're a team like LNG and you start the Baron, you're just putting yourself in such an easy position to take a full combo from the LeBlanc, get chunked out, and then, right, you don't even necessarily need to die. If FoFo can do enough damage to one member where they just have to leave the fight, where they have to back, that's still a numbers advantage for the side of RA, where they can try to benefit off that, or even just bring Cube in with a Paranoia to finish someone off. There's so many long-range tools on the side of RA, and by so many, I guess I mean specifically 2 in your Nocturne and your LeBlanc, that if you overstay anywhere, you've got to be very careful of these guys catching off any stragglers, or just FoFo chunking out someone so low that Cube can be the finishing blow. But RA looks like they still want to posture around this top side. Despite RA's advantage, Cube still cannot match Ale in a side lane, so definitely you want to nix that idea, and we finally get the Baron coming out, Munchables.
Yeah, they're going to toy with the idea at least, but it's spotted out on a ward, and I guess RA not confident to just brute force it. I feel like they maybe could have gone for that one. Light was nowhere near. But obviously, they didn't know that. They didn't have deep vision on the side of LNG, so now RA just going to go for a reset themselves and try and finish off some builds, because look at FoFo. Full 6 items at this point. Same can be said for iBoy. Similar story on the other side, though, is the AD carry in Light has finished his build as well. And obviously, Ale, I think he finished his build about 20 minutes ago at this point. He must have just stacks of gold. He's basically Smaug off The Hobbit at this point, where he's just sitting on piles of gold. Just anyone that comes near him, breathing fire. Or at least breathing swordplay. Can you breathe swordplay? I'm not sure.
I don't think so, Munchables. I think you're going a bit too far down that one, but RA, they know their win con at this point. It just keep pivoting towards the Baron. One thing we'd really like to see RA be able to do is get some deeper vision into LNG's jungle so they can start chunking out people effectively with that LeBlanc, but they're going to go back to this one. They do have good turn potential, but this sets up Tarzan for a really good angle for the equalizer and gives Light an easy access for those arrows.
Even if RA back away here, they've used all of the blue trinkets. But remember, it's a Kalista here. Huge threat onto the backline there. Tarzan's in trouble. A kick through 4 people. And in goes Cube to finish one off. Tarzan goes down. Baron taken by RA. And with this composition that we said probably wouldn't work in the late game, they have managed to make things work. Leyan with the most beautiful kick I've seen from him maybe ever, honestly. And a huge opportunity now. RA try and push down the mid lane.
Now, RA at least going to be able to get an inhibitor. They do have that Baron, but with Elder coming up in 40 seconds, it looks like the resets are going to be the play for RA. They want to come out, secure that one. And if they can, right, they now have the opportunity to go for that push. And we've already seen how much damage has been coming out from them with Soul without the Elder Dragon. So we can see them in a very similar situation as before, pushing through mid and bot to go for those chunks. And a key thing here, right, Leyan already taken solo just by a combo from FoFo. And then that kick from Leyan, knocking up so many members of the side of LNG. Cube able to follow with the Paranoia to finish that one off. It was just done and dusted. Really well done to see. Leyan, massive props for the kick, but again, it's always coming from the damage that FoFo puts down on LeBlanc.
Yeah. Here we go. Elder Drake for the second time this game. But again, the Kalista, even in the late game, adds so much to being able to take these objectives. Let's see who gets the smite. It is going to be RA. And suddenly things look dire for LNG as RA just take them apart piece by piece. Cube flashing forward to try and take down Tarzan. He doesn't want to let him get away with this one, but Ale procs the blast cone to save his jungler. They're 2 men strong, but surely RA can finish this one out.
Yeah, RA just going to be able to push for the end despite losing all of the early team fights, Munch. They came back in the mid game. They found the picks, and it was all off the back off this mid and jungle duo.
Unbelievable performance coming out, especially from FoFo. If he doesn't get man of the match, man, I don't know what else to say. Ale is going to do his damnedest to try and hold on, but the Nexus will fall, and RA prove that this ain't just a flash in the pan.
No, and RA to me has been one of the teams that I've liked to watch the split. Sure, again, their first 15 minutes isn't always the most convincing, but I think they're the same team that they were in spring, but they've just kind of improved across the board. They're a team that has 5 solid players. In terms of laning phases, they're actually statistically one of the best laning phase teams in the LPL. You know they're all very strong. They're all very competent in terms of like handling their champion. And then seeing them understand their win conditions throughout this game. We saw them attempt those picks in the mid game, but LNG was smart. They didn't look for it. But once they were able to just stack those early dragons for free, and LNG had to come into them and fight them, and they weren't able to get that good angle, right? That's when things were able to come together, and unsurprisingly, FoFo with the most damage. Almost like anyone who wouldn't put him on a top 15 list in the LPL right now is probably crazy.
He did 20,000 more damage than anyone else in the game. That is mental. FoFo just having a field day. Obviously, did have an Infernal Soul. That'll certainly help, but it doesn't stop him just being an absolute monster in these games. And I feel like FoFo, it feels like a while since I saw him have a bad game. It feels like he is one of the best playmaking mids in the LPL as well. And I think that's the part that really puts him higher than a lot of the mid laners in the LPL, is that every single game, it feels like he's looking for opportunities and finding them to make a difference in the game. And that's one of the things that it's a little bit more difficult to define, but it's something it's the reason that we always talk about Knight. It's the reason we always talk about Rookie, right? Because they will find ways to win the game. FoFo is obviously going to be our MVP off the back of that one. I don't think anyone is surprised by that fact. 20k more damage than anyone else. All of those big plays. 236% value on the gold they spent. That is mind-blowing.
I mean, the thing to me is the 41% damage, right? Because typically, when you see a team have an assassin, it's been a bit different this meta, but usually it's like, okay, like 20% of the team's damage, something extremely low, because it's not about consistently outputting DPS, it's about finding those high-value moments where you can burst out the key target and win the fight. But in this composition, he had to be the one to step up to deal the damage before you had those same grouped fights we saw early in the game. He was able to do it later on. And, you know, not to kick anyone while they're down, but also, you know, a nice shout out to, you know, brother Ale helping us out a bit in the mid game with the Fiora engage. But yeah, I really like this from RA. I want to see how they adapt going into game 2 if they want to keep on themselves on this sort of strong early game pick composition. A lot of agency on pretty much every member of the team, right? Every member on RA's team with the champions they had is able to either engage, jump in, or find a pick of some sort.
And, you know, you mentioned the Ale play. I said on the cast, you know, everyone gets one mistake. We can let this one slide. But actually, that really was the moment when you think about it in the big picture that LNG lost control of the game. So, bit of a rough one for Ale after such a great early game for him. But FoFo, the man of the hour, at least, for the side of RA. We're going to jump into a break. Then we'll be with